This is the setup video for Chapter 5 for Ravenclaw. You will need a couple of things. You're going to need your ISN, a pen, a glue stick or something to glue things with, a pair of scissors. You will need a couple of sheets of paper, okay? So you're going to need a blue packet, a pink sheet that says parallel perpendicular, a green half sheet, an orange sheet that says alternate interior angles on it, a yellow sheet that says the proof process, a white sheet that looks like it has a coloring page on it. It says Pythagorean theorem practice at the top, a Chapter 5 Ravenclaw math menu. It's very specific for you guys. And you will also need a packet that says Chapter 5 vocabulary, triangles, and the Pythagorean theorem at the top. So once you have all of that together, go ahead. I recommend taking the staple out first of your packet, which I've already done. Okay, and then you want to cut directly down the middle. All right, so once you've done that, you're gonna have two separate packets. Go ahead and put those aside. All right, and we can go ahead and start gluing things in. All right, we left off on page 110. That was where your math menu is. Okay, so on page 111, you're gonna leave that page blank. On page 112, you're going to glue in the page that says Chapter 5 vocabulary, triangles, and the Pythagorean theorem. That goes on page 112. On page 113, you're going to glue in the one that says exterior angles at the top. Page 113. Page 114, you're gluing in the one that says perpendicular lines. And on page 115, you're gluing in the one that says two-column proof. Okay, so that's the first 4 pages. That's all your vocab. At the top of page 112, you're going to write Chapter 5 vocabulary. Okay, that's at the top of page 112. Chapter 5 vocabulary. On page 116, you're going to glue in the page that says lines at the top, and it has intersecting, perpendicular, and parallel lines. That goes on page 116. On page 117, you're going to take the pink paper, along the solid line, I'm going to fold it in half. Fold it in half. Okay, so you have that. And then on the dotted lines, the dashed lines, you're going to cut. Make sure you only cut the top portion. So now I have that. I have my 3 little flaps. Okay. This gets glued on page 117. Page 117. Okay. On page 118, you're going to put in the next page that says line. It says find missing angle measures at the top. That goes on page 118. On page 119, you're going to glue in the green page. This goes on page 119, green. And you're probably going to have to do it up and down because it won't fit otherwise. On 120, you're going to glue in the page that says try it, and it says angle 1 is 130 degrees. That goes on page 120. On page 121, you're gluing in the one that says geometric proof. It has this rattlesnake skin on it. That goes on page 121. All right, on page 122, you're going to take your yellow paper, the one that says the proof process at the top. You're going to cut all the way around the outside. Okay, so I've cut all the way along the outside. Make sure your scraps go in the garbage. Okay, you're going to take the paper, flip it over so it says proof process again. Okay, but it's got the circles. You're going to fold it in half. From here, you're going to take and you're going to cut along the solid lines. Only cut the first flap though. So you can see. Okay. So now that I've done this, I've got a couple flaps. All right, you're going to take and you're going to glue this to page 122. It goes on page 122. All right, on page 123, you're going to take your orange paper and you're going to cut along the solid outside. All right, so now that I've cut around the outside, okay, make sure you throw your scraps away. You're going to take, it says alternate exterior angles at the top. You're going to take, flip it over, and you're going to fold right along the dashed lines. You see the dashed lines right here? You're going to fold right along them. So fold at the dashed lines. So when I do that, I'm going to do it on both sides. So now that it's folded, folds down like this, okay? You're going to take and you're going to cut along the solid lines. Make sure you only cut the top flap, okay? I'm just going to cut right along those solid lines. So now I have my flaps. They can fold up. You're going to take and glue this on page 123. It's on page 123. On page 124, You're going to glue in the one that says geometric proof at the top. This goes on page 124. And then on page 125, you're going to glue in the one that says try it out. It has a pair of scissors on it. This goes on page 125. Okay, on page 126, you're going to glue in the one that says angles of triangles. It has angle sum of a triangle at the top. That goes on page 126. On page 127, you're gluing in the other one that says angles of triangles. It has exterior angle theorem. That's on page 127. On page 128, you're going to glue in the one that says try it out. Has 3 problems, starts with A in triangle XYZ. That goes on page 128. On page 129, you're gluing in the one that says polygons and angles. It's on page 129. Polygons and angles. Okay. It has the interior and exterior. On page 130, you're gluing in the one that says polygons and angles, and it has interior angles and regular polygons at the top. That goes on page 132. Sorry, that goes on page 130. On page 131, you're going to put in the try it out. It has up to letter I, and letter A says hexagon. It's on page 131. Page 132, you're gluing in the one that says Pythagorean theorem. It has this triangle on it. That goes on page 132. On page 133, you're gluing in the other one that says try it. It's on page 133. All right. Now on page 134 and 135, you're going to take your white piece of paper, the one that says Pythagorean theorem practice. You're going to cut it in half. This first half that has name at the top, Pythagorean theorem practice, that's going to go on page 134. And then the coloring sheet is going to go on page 135. On page 136, you're going to glue in the one that says use the Pythagorean theorem. That goes on page 136. Page 137, you're going to glue in the try it out problems. It says A, Mr. Parsons wants to build a new banister. That goes on page 137. All right, on page 138, you're going to take your blue packet. It has a staple at the top. Okay, you're going to take it, you're going to cut it in half down the middle. You're going to take the staple out. Okay, this is what your Chapter 5 table of contents should look like for Ravenclaw. 112 through 115, Chapter 5 vocabulary. 116 through 120 lines. 121 through 125 geometric proof. 126 through 128 angles of triangles. 129 through 131 polygons and angles. 132 through 135 Pythagorean theorem. 136 through 137, use the Pythagorean theorem. 138 through 140, distance on the coordinate plane. 141 through 147, geometric proof task cards. 148, chapter 5, math menu. All right, so now that we have everything glued in, let's just go back and double check and make sure it's correct. So on page 112, we have chapter 5 vocab. On page 113, we have vocab page number 2. On page 114, we have vocab page number 3. And on page 115, we have vocab page number 4. On 116, we have lines. On 117, we have the pink foldable. On 118, we have the second page for lines. On 119, we have the green page. On 120, we have the try it out problem. On 121, we have geometric proof. On 122, we have the yellow foldable. On 123, we have the orange foldable. On 124, we have geometric proof. On 125, we have the try it out. On 126, we have angles of triangles. 127, angles of triangles. 128, we have try it out. 129, polygons and angles. 130, polygons and angles. 131, try it out. 132, Pythagorean theorem. 133, Pythagorean theorem, try it out problems. 134, we have the Pythagorean theorem practice. On page 135, we have the coloring page to accompany it. Page 136, we have use the Pythagorean theorem. On 137, we have the try it out problems. 138, we have distance on the coordinate plane. 139, distance on the coordinate plane. Page 140, we have the try it out problems. On 141, we have the geometric proof task cards, 1 and 2. Page 142, we have 3 and 4. Page 143, we have 5 and 6. Page 144, we have 7 and 8. On page 145, we have 9 and 10. Page 146, we have 11 and 12. On 147, we have 13 and 14. And then on page 148, we have the math menu for Ravenclaw.